why do we get surprise bills? Why is there not more price transparency? And then going beyond that, how does that affect how we actually use our healthcare services and our benefits? Because the downstream effect is that you get one surprise bill that you have to finance or you can't pay for, and then you stop going to the doctor even when you have insurance. Right. We really want to solve this problem because there was an immense amount of frustration being that I came from this industry. I am trained in healthcare administration. I know all the ins and outs of this, and yet if I'm dealing with this problem, then what is it like for people that don't have the knowledge?
And with Kai, we said, how do we build community, but within the workplace? Because being in leadership for a while, I realized there's such a lack of mental health culture and framework and a shared language around mental health. So we train leaders on how to identify, talk about mental health, understand the nuances behind it. And it's not always about your own personal experiences. It's about how do you support the person next to you. Right. And it's all rooted in shared and lived experiences.
Hi, I'm Angela Abdul-Rashid, the host of the Prosper Connector podcast. We're the place where information is shared, connections are made, and great Birmingham stories are told by great Birmingham people. Today, we have some amazing Birmingham people. I'd like to introduce you all to Corey Anand, CEO of Kaya, and also to Shielvonda Haith, CEO of BrightPay. So, as you get to know them, you're going to be amazed by their stories and what brought them here to Birmingham. But I want to start the way we start every podcast, and that's asking a simple question about food. Everything revolves around food. So, you all are relatively new to the Magic City, but I know that you know what we have to offer in the culinary world. So if Birmingham were a food, what food would it be and why?
Do you want me to go first?
Go first.
All right. Oh, food is great here. It really is. And I was just at, a festival, and I think about the corn dog. Now, hear me out here for a second.
Okay.
Right? All right. So it's an OG. It's versatile. You don't see it all the time, but when someone talks about it, you got to have one. So I think we're like Birmingham, right? Birmingham is special. You don't hear about it all the time, but when someone mentions Birmingham, you want to come and visit.
I love it. All right, Shielvonda, top that if you can. I know you can.
So I'm going to choose a truffle because truffles are, they have a firmness on the outside. They're very smooth. They're very simplistic, seemingly. Mm-hmm. And then once you bite into a good truffle and you have like this really soft, rich kind of gooiness. And that's how I feel about Birmingham. That's how I would describe Birmingham. Like prior to coming here, didn't know a lot about it. Very kind of like, oh, okay, Birmingham. But got here and just felt this like richness and this love and this comfort.
And
I
gooiness.
Feel, yes. And I feel like it's like the truffle, and it's this like softness and this gooiness love.
I love it, which is exactly why you all are with us today, because you are not from Birmingham, yet you chose to be here. Some people would think, why in the world would anyone in their right mind choose to relocate? And I'll let you tell your stories, but from California, from Atlanta, to come here to the Magic City. But Prosperous HealthTech Accelerator brought you here. And I would like to say the community kept you here.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
So tell us about your journey to Birmingham. And Shielvonda, we'll start with you.
So I finished the Prosper HealthTech Accelerator, and during kind of a brief moments there, I was bringing my family here off and on. So my husband would come for one weekend, my kids would come for another weekend, and they loved it here. So we relocated here. We found that the community was very different than Atlanta in a good way, right? It was very welcoming and extremely supportive of us being new. We got help with like school recommendations, like childcare. People were giving up their childcare spots and thinking of us first as like, hey, we know you're looking for a daycare. Have you tried this? So I feel like that's what brought us here, along with, of course, the business brought us here, but I think that's like what really helped stick for us. And then, of course, business-wise, it's a very viable market for and extremely supportive for young startups and early stage startups as well. So
good. We're so glad you're here. Yeah. Corey, how did you get here, and why did you decide to stay with us?
So we were in the first cohort for Prosper. And when we were applying to the program, I was in San Francisco for 7 years. And it was one of those moments where I remember when we got accepted, it was, do you want to come, move here for 3 months in person? And I said, tell me more. I've never been to Birmingham, haven't lived in the Southeast. I remember we decided to just do it, to see what the experience would be like. It was an opportunity we just had to take. I remember just throwing my dog in the car, driving, across country and coming for the program. And I think what I really appreciated was everyone's willingness to help and a welcome, a very welcoming kind of attitude. I think the community coming around us to say, how do we help support startups here? Birmingham, I still think, is a very new startup scene that wants to grow. And so we've been here 2 years now. For the company and, partner with some great organizations here. And it's just been a wonderful experience in my life.
And it's amazing. You said 2 years for you, Shielvonda. It's been 1 year. And I do go into the community, and I'm in the community a lot. And it amazes me when people ask me, do I know you all? Or tell me that I need to meet you all. And I'm thinking, that is what it means to really be a part of community. But let's talk about your businesses, because that is what brought you here. And that is the impact that we know you're making as we're talking about the face of new startups or the face of health tech. Tell us about Kaya. Tell us about BrightPay. Just brief concepts on who you are and services that you offer. And then I want to dive a little bit more deeply about those community relationships that you all have just gone above and beyond in fostering for your companies and for this community.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, so glad you're here.
Oh, very excited. Oh, it's wonderful to be with you both. So I've been an entrepreneur for about 15 years now. I've been in and out of tech. I've started 2 other companies, but really my passion is around mental health. It really stems from my own personal experience and just growing up in a culture where we don't talk about it. A long family history of struggles with mental health challenges, including myself. And, through my 20s, very much on my own, finding my own path to healing. And a lot of it was around community. If it was around community and a group of humans that really helped me navigate my mental health, I don't think I would be here. And when the pandemic had happened, I was working at a company and I realized I wanted to get back to being a founder. I'd taken a few years off. And it had to be around mental health, right? Pandemic, we all were struggling for that community, that connection.
Absolutely.
And with Kai, we said, how do we build community, but within the workplace? Because being in leadership for a while, I realized there's such a lack of mental health culture and framework and a shared language around mental health. And we decided to build Kaya, which leads groups led by clinicians for the company on how to build psychological safety. And that is building the mental health pillar for them. So we train leaders on how to identify, talk about mental health, understand the nuances behind it. And it's not always about your own personal experiences. It's about how do you support the person next to you.
Right.
And it's all rooted in shared and lived experiences. So that is really at the core of what we do. And this year we are now partnering with universities to help build psychological safety within the Greek life community and helping organizations predict the future in mental health wellness for their company.
I love it. And that is so very necessary. And I know that it started in the pandemic, but there is a life that we are all living post-pandemic where these kinds of services are even more crucial and necessary. And the fact that it is in our backyard means a lot to our city. Shielvonda, tell us about BrightPay.
So BrightPay actually was a labor of love that was birthed a little bit kind of post-pandemic, like 2021 is when we began. And the backstory is that I've been in healthcare for 15 years. Most of my career has been peppered between working for other startups and then working for insurance organizations or other types of care delivery organizations. And in 2021, I had just had my son. So he was born in November of 2020. And then I'd paid all of my hospital bills and was super excited because I didn't expect to have any type of surprise bill at all. And then my daughter had a dental diagnosis that sounds so small until it's not. And so
Wow.
it was a very small thing that turned into a $7,000 out-of-pocket bill for me. And this is coming from someone that's like fully insured, works for a plan, and that was my contribution. There was a lot of frustration that was created from that experience that led to me wanting to solve the problem, not just for me, but for other people. And it's more the overall access to care and resources and financial options and planning. So why do we get surprise bills? Why is there not more price transparency? And then going beyond that, how does that affect how we actually use our healthcare services and our benefits? Because the downstream effect is that you get one surprise bill that you have to finance or you can't pay for, and then you stop going to the doctor even when you have insurance, right? And so we said, okay, we really want to solve this problem because there was an immense amount of frustration being that I came from this industry. I am trained in healthcare administration. I know all the ins and outs of this. And yet, if I'm dealing with this problem, then what is it like for people that don't have the knowledge? So we created Bright Pay, and we created Bright Pay with the top line mission to really expand access to care and utilization of services, right, through price transparency, through financial planning resources to help you know how much is your healthcare going to cost, and then giving you the tools to be able to pay for it. And so with that, we go out and we build groups of providers. We bring them onto our platform, and then individuals as well as employers are able to actually empower their employees to go out and say, hey, here's a budget of $300 or $400. Pick the doctor that you want to go to for services. Pick the services that are most important to you. And oh, by the way, there's a price of that. So now you not only get to customize the type of care you get, but you also get the financial components of that to know exactly what is it going to cost you, and you can plan for that proactively versus in the rears, which then turns around and encourages people to actually use the benefits and get your preventative screenings.
Absolutely.
And do that, so.
Absolutely. Wow. Kudos to both of you for stepping out, number one, as founders, and for knowing the important areas where there were gaps and then stepping in to fill those gaps. We know you're not doing it by yourself, though, and we hope that Birmingham is treating you well as it relates to partnership and collaboration and just support. Can you talk about some of your partnerships and what those have looked like? Can you also talk about some of the challenges that you're still experiencing or have experienced since coming here?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about community, and when we first moved here, right, it takes time, it's an adjustment. It absolutely is, I think, culturally, you're coming from the West Coast to the Southeast, right?
It's a little different.
Yeah, and it's not, there's nothing, that's not bad at all. It'd be different from going from the East Coast to the West Coast, right? It's, one thing I do value about being here is just the values, right? There's a lot of community, a lot of family, a lot of events around building the community and helping everyone that needs help. For us, I think one of the best partnerships we created was with UAB, which did take a very long time, but it was such a learning experience for us. And we've been able to partner with Student Counseling Services to offer a group mental health services for students before they go to see an individual therapist. So it really helps kind of spread the care. It allows students to get in early, build community and support. But that's been a challenge too, because we have to reduce the stigma on what it is to be in a group of individuals, to connect with other humans, which is why we went to the Greek life route as well. And we're partnering with undergraduate student government associations. But I have to say, we worked with Angela Stowe, the director of student counseling, and just a wonderful human being to help us navigate the system, but say, how can we make mental health more accessible and inclusive to those who need it? I think some of the challenges that we have faced is, innovation has to come within from these larger companies. And I think when they're going to partner with startups, there's just a shift in mentality of what does it take to partner with a startup, right? The ups and the downs, and what are some of the value adds that we can provide as a startup. I think that train is still, kind of picking up speed and steam on how does a larger company partner with a startup that can still move fast and be very nimble, but just kind of supporting each other to building a strong partnership.
I love it. And I want to talk more about that Greek life partnership.
Yeah.
Shielvonda, talk about your partnership and how you were able to really just immerse yourself in this community to build some really rich relationships.
So we are very early stage. So our partnerships look less like large institutions and more like smaller organizations and smaller businesses. And so for us, some of the really cool partnerships is, I have to shout out Dr. Cree Johnson at Brownstone Health.
Absolutely. We love Dr. Cree.
Dr. Cree is amazing, and she was one of our first providers to come on board. And that was really big for us because that was pre the beautiful product that you see now. And so she kind of came behind us, supported us, and being that she's well known in the community, that really helped us build some credibility really early on. And then we had a number of other doctors that locally were like, we think this is really cool. Dr. Ramsey, Dr. French, Dr. Lett. Like, we have so many that are local that were like, okay, we're going to give this a try because we see what the mission is and we're about it. And even now when I send like little updates about different things, they're like, we know you guys are a startup. Like, we know that it takes time because they're business owners too. And so they're like, we get it. And so they're just very supportive. And then there's just different community organizations too that have just been supportive with Community Kitchens is one where they said, hey, would you like to come out and talk with members about just healthcare? Even if they're not our target segment, you have information that may be helpful for them. And it was a good experience. It was a great experience. So those are kinds of organizations that we partner with. And then just one thing that Corey mentioned that I think is really key too is about partnering with startups as large organizations. And I think sometimes some of the larger organizations have the best intentions to want to partner with us. But when you say startup, it can look very different, right? Like I always say we're super early. We'll be 3 years old in July. And in startup world, that's also, a 5-year-old company is also a startup, right? Yes. And so how does partnering with a Bright Pay look different than partnering with another more mature organization? And so I will just, like to say that there are some organizations here that I don't know if I can officially say yet, but what I can say is that this was a conversation that we had with one of the hospitals and said, hey, like, your system and your infrastructure does not support partnering with us. So you say you want innovation, but your structure doesn't support working with us for innovation. And what I appreciate so much about the individuals that work for that hospital is that they said, okay, well, let's talk about how we can start. Good. And we have a starting point, right? They've given us transparent pricing for a particular service line that we can now publish. And I love it. And I don't know can I officially say who it is, and then you can edit it out if I'm not supposed to. Sorry.
No, you are fine. You're fine.
Well, shout out to Jeremy Clark and Christina Brown. I'm just going to say that.
Call people's name. Good. So you mentioned, Corey, a very unique partnership or way that you're sort of evolving your company to meet really targeted needs within the Greek life community on college campuses. Why was that necessary? What in your mind says this is a way that we can, I'm going to use this word very loosely, infiltrate the college campuses to make sure that these services are available to students who need them?
Yeah, no, and thank you for that question. When we were navigating the challenges of how do we provide groups to students at UAB as a partnership with student counseling services, how do we meet a student where they're at? And we hired marketing interns on campus that wanted to learn about a startup, grow it. And the feedback that we got was it can be, student counseling is a wonderful resource. It's an absolute must to have. But how do we kind of show up as a company that wants to build community and not necessarily you need help perspective? And, I was at a coffee shop. One of the baristas is part of a sorority, and she goes, we have chapter meetings, and this is a prime platform to help build psychological safety within our house. That way, every member knows how to talk about mental health. If I need to support Shielvonda, obviously we wouldn't be in the same household, but, how do we, how can I support that conversation, start that conversation? And we say, how do we build a shared language of mental health support within a community? Greek Life is a massive community.
That is the community on a college campus.
Community. And so we ran a session for sorority, and it was a lot about the dynamics of stress and burnout during final season. It was about partnering to understand someone else's stress and also how to support them, and then burnout. And we now want to take that and add in some social media elements of promoting mental health. Can Greek Life chapters be a full-on Kaya supported advocate for mental health, and really just create a new dynamic around mental health within Greek Life community where stigma is usually very high? And so we talk with the University of Alabama and other local universities as saying, we can do this for Greek Life. We can create students who really support mental health, promote it, and that reflects well on the university as well.
I love it. And you are taking that service to where the students are.
We're meeting them where they're
in their houses. They're in their sorority and fraternity communities. And so they're there. They're captive audiences.
Yes. And there's large shared experiences, which brings people together that builds community.
Yes. Yeah. And it's, again, the epitome of what sisterhood and brotherhood is about. You're empowering them to support one another.
Yes.
And to walk the journey together.
Yes. Yeah. And we do virtual sessions where a clinician will virtually, come into the chapter meeting and build a curriculum around monthly topics, and then it's all interactive. There's activities, sessions that really builds that shared understanding.
I love it. Well, Shielvonda, what's next for BrightPay? What's on the horizon? What do you want to be on the horizon for BrightPay?
So we are in the middle of implementing our first business client, actually, across 5 states. So
Wonderful.
We are super excited about
Wonderful.
that. Yeah. So we're launching that June 1st. We've got a pipeline of about 40 other businesses that we are working actively to close. We're constantly recruiting. So we're working on that too for our provider network and expanding that. So.
Wonderful. Well, we are just thrilled to have you in the city. We were thrilled when you joined our HealthTech accelerators first and second year. But just to see your companies bloom and blossom, to see both of you grow, and to see the impact that you're making on our city. We're going to be selfish on the city. We know that you all are nationwide companies, but you are here and a part of our community. And thinking about the topic of this and sort of what's next in healthcare, health tech, who are the new faces, to know that you all are representatives of what's to come. For me as a Birmingham native, makes me super proud, very excited, wanting to dive in and help. So let's talk about help. How can people reach you with Kaya, with BrightPay? If someone wants to, I don't know, let's just say invest $1 billion here and $1 billion there, how can they find you? Because we want them to be able to know how to directly contact you to give that $1 billion or to offer their school or their hospital to reach you.
Yeah. You want to go first?
Sure. So we can be reached at GetBrightPay, GetBrightPay.com. And all of our information is there, and you can always find me on LinkedIn as well.
And Get BrightPay, is that new sparkling website that has been released to the world recently?
It is our new website, and you can also download our app via both the App Store and Google Play as well.
And the website is amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. Corey, what about you? How can we find Kaya?
Yeah, so we're at joinkaya, KAYA.com. And we're also on social media. We're doing big pushes around Mental Health Awareness Month. That's coming up. Well, that is May. And, we are also partnering with learning and development folks within organizations in HR. And then Greek Life can also find us as well on joinkaya.com.
Wonderful. Corey, Shielvonda, thank you for being in Birmingham. Thank you for all that you're pouring into our community. Stay here so we can continue to pour into you all, bring more with you. But thank you for joining us on the podcast today, and we are truly looking forward to what's to come for Kaya and for BrightPay.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.